Fourth wheel around the corner, he just can't seem to get it quite right, you know, and he's trying to equal the stage win record of 8 by Rudi Altig for Germany, and again he's a little bit away from it now. Weissman once more doesn't realise it, he's inexperienced perhaps in his first tour, leading out the wrong man, leading out Fognini now once more launching the missile at the finish, as again he waits until the last possible moment. Cipollini, remember he's aiming now at a 69-year-old record. Cipollini's gone, and what's happened to Zabel? Lost both his pedals at the same time, and how he's kept that bike upright I don't know, but he's given a clear run now to Cipollini. He's done it 4 in a row for Mario Cipollini, but I think I'd like to see what happened to Erik Zabel again there, Paul.
That was unbelievable. Both his feet came out of the pedals at the same time. I really don't know how he stayed upright, but this is the kick. In fact, you can see both legs came out. They went behind him. He managed to pull them up, but he never let go of the handlebars, and that's how he managed to control the machine. But that had nothing to do with the win of Mario Cipollini, because Cipollini was already in the lead, almost a length ahead of Stuart O'Grady, and once he'd got the chance of that great record, he just put his head down and went to the line. O'Grady had to be happy with second.
Yes, poor old Stuart, but at least they all got out of the way. A potential crash there from Erik Zabel, as this man just looks over his shoulder, makes it look so easy. He's now got 4 wins straight, and he's also got the fastest stage ever of the Tour this week. Cipollini then winning ahead of O'Grady and Kersipou. Overall, Cipollini still 14 seconds off yellow.
This is the launch pad of the individual time trial at the Tour de France. For many of the lesser riders, there's always a sensation of fear when you come in there because you're looking elimination in the face. But for the big names, it's the first time in a week that they have to come out and really put their cards on the table, because at the end of the individual time trial that we get an idea of just exactly who's going to win the Tour de France. That's why they call it the race of truth.
And this man who's surprised at the Puy de Fou in the prologue is at it again here, because his checks are very, very quick at every mark we go through, Paul. He is rewriting the time checkbook. But this accident out on the course, and this is Bobby Julich. We've heard about it, now we can get a look at it. Poor Julich has misjudged his right-hander and has gone down very, very badly indeed.
This is one of the most dangerous parts of the course, but Armstrong has ridden by him. Armstrong himself realising that he is doing great times out on the course. Boardman set the early times, but now Armstrong goes through here after 33 kilometres with the best time covered.
And this is what is happening. Lance Armstrong, it's all coming together again, just like it did on the Puy de Fou. This is a man who really has learned to time trial and is beginning to embarrass everybody, especially the rider in front of him here, because he's pulling back man after man. This looks like George Hincapie.
Yeah, his teammate Abraham Alano looks as if he's had a problem going around one of the corners there. He's back up on his machine. He's getting pushed by one of the spectators at the side of the road, and he must have lost it in that corner, Phil.
Well, I think it's a left-hand corner. He's just got... Oh, we can have a look at it again here now. It's a left-hand corner, completely out of control. There's no way he was going anywhere. He locks up his back wheel. Well, thank heavens there was a straw bale there, but that's called a headstand in front of the public, and the world champion is going to be embarrassed about that, because, in fact, Armstrong is coming right up behind him.
Armstrong is riding an incredible race, starting 2 minutes behind the world champion at the time trial. He's already got him in sight, and this is going to be a double blow, really, to Abraham Alano, the world champion at this discipline.
Well, you know, Abraham Alano has never been caught as a professional in a time trial before, and all that is about to change, and Armstrong is the man to do it. Is there no end to this rider this year, because Armstrong just can do absolutely nothing wrong?
Well, the last time I saw him ride a time trial like this, Phil, was 1996, the Tour du Pont, which he absolutely dominated. He won that time trial stage there at over 32 miles an hour. But he has changed. His position on the machine has changed. He's got a very aerodynamic helmet. But the important thing is the speed at which he's pedaling. Look at that cadence. It's up around 100 RPM.
Well, since his cancer therapy and his chemotherapy, he has lost an awful lot of weight in his training, in his comeback. Those that thought after his Paris-Nice race last year that he was going home for good were proved absolutely wrong. This man has waited to come to the Tour de France this year. He's come, and he's come in the biggest way you could imagine. Armstrong is now racing to the best time here as we go back to the finish. Dufault and Zuller is the best time in. We didn't see him finish, but Dufault now 1:12, only 6th for him.
This is great. Look at this. This is Armstrong catching a man who started 6 minutes in front of him. This is the Belgian sprinter, Tom Steels, and he's going to get a major shock. Abraham Olano, Phil, is fighting to try and stay in contact.
Well, if anything, he's gone slightly better since Armstrong caught him. That might be a little bit of pride there, but he's tried to lift his race. This is Tom Steels now as Armstrong continues, and Steels has got no chance here of keeping up, I don't think.
Well, I have to say, Phil, I think, in fact, Armstrong is weakening over the last 10 kilometres as he's caught all of the other riders in front of him. He's dropped them very easily, but now Tom Steels, who is not riding a great time trial, has managed to stay in contact with Armstrong. But look at this time by Moreau.
Well, again, Christophe Moreau has shown us what a great time trial rider he is, and he's still surviving up near the top of the leaderboard too, and this will keep him there. He's only a bit slower than Alex Zuller, second at the moment, and 1 minute 6 seconds off the leaderboard. Tom Steele still trying to keep Lance Armstrong in sight at 1 kilometre to go.
Armstrong has set the fastest times at every time check so far, Phil, and some of them have been incredible times. He was almost a minute faster than Alex Zuller, and now he's coming up to the line, and look at that, he's almost a minute faster on the finish line as well.
Well, we are going to see a second stage win here, and the second time trial win for Lance Armstrong, and it could well be a yellow jersey as well. Armstrong won 8:36, an incredible time. Lance Armstrong has reclaimed the maillot jaune that he won at the Puy de Fou, and you can say that before the arrival of Abraham Olano, who has been caught for 2 minutes by Armstrong and is just trying to salvage a reasonable time, and it will be around 5th overall on the day, 1:10.58, and 5th for Olano.
Unbelievable. Olano looked fantastic in the first kilometres of this time trial. I thought he looked good, but he could do nothing against the onslaught of Lance Armstrong. This man has ridden the time trial at almost exactly the same speed as he rode the opening prologue. That announces it's going to be a pretty impressive ride when we go into the mountains after the rest day.
Well, can he continue? This is unbelievable here. Lance Armstrong, though, the winner of the time trial by almost a minute over Alex Zuller. Moreau taking third, but over 2 minutes off the pace. And Olano even further back. Tyler Hamilton, another good time trial by him at 3:31, although he won't give his all today because he knows now he's going to have to work for Lance Armstrong in the overall race for yellow. Chris Boardman, a little bit off the pace there, 6th for him. So the yellow jersey back on the shoulders of Lance Armstrong 1 week into the Tour de France. It's an awful long way to go yet, but look at these gaps now. These are sensational time gaps. 2:20 on Christophe Moreau, 2:33 on Olano, 3:25 on O'Grady. The big question is, can his team now support him for 2 weeks of the Tour de France and keep him in yellow? It's going to take an awful lot of doing, and the pressure's on them. Hello and welcome to Tour Plus. Well, after 1,468 kilometres and 9 days of racing, the Tour de France has reached the mountains. For some, they are high roads. Does he fear the 2 days ahead?
Coming into the Tour, I thought, and my coaches and the people on the team thought that my strength in the Tour would be my climbing and not my time trial. And so if that holds true, then I might be able to hold on.
So Armstrong seems ready and confident. This is the overall situation this morning. He leads Christophe Moreau by 2 minutes 20 seconds and Abraham Olano by 2:33. Stuart O'Grady, the Australian, also doing well in 4th. Of the others who should look forward to today, Pavel Tonkov is 13th and 5 minutes 10 seconds back. Alex Zuller, after a good time trial, is creeping back at 7:08. And Chris Boardman, he'll have a tough day today, but he's still riding the Tour in 123rd position. And a massive crowd now, the riders having flown overnight some 500 kilometres down to the start here. And now it's a day on as they face up to 213 kilometres of alpine climbing. And not coming on the aeroplane trip are Jimmy Casper and Nicola Minali, two sprinters who've decided to stay up north as the riders now make their way towards the high mountains of the Tour. 15 kilometres an hour, slight wind today, and it's going to be warm, but rain is threatened.
28 degrees maximum in the valleys, but it will be very cold over the summits. And already, Phil, the American flag making its appearance on the Tour de France here. Lance has got an awful lot of supporters for his yellow jersey.
Well, Lance said the jersey was kept warm for the next rider. That's what he said when he gave it to Kersipou, but I bet he didn't believe Kersipou would give it back to him. This is Konishev now towards the top of the Col de Marais. 15 kilometres covered, and Konishev gets the points ahead of Mariano Piccoli and Lilian Le Breton. Now, the next climb coming at 38.5 kilometres, the Col de Tamier.
Again, Mariano Piccoli, the leader of the King of the Mountains competition. He's been fantastic over the first week of the Tour, Phil, and he's trying to build up as big a lead as possible to try and hold on to that jersey. But over the big mountains, he will certainly get challenged.
Well, this is the 12-kilometre or 7-mile climb now of the Col de Telegraph. It takes the riders up to 1,566 metres. 31st time the riders have come up here now as they make their way towards the summit. Arietta has got clear of the field, and as you can see now, as we start on what is the stepping stone to the Galibier, the rain has also started here.
Richard Virenque went across in 6th place there, 5.5 minutes behind. But what's happening now, Phil, is the teams of Kelme and the teams of Ernesto are launching riders up the road because this is the strategy. They're certainly going to try and place an attack on the lead of Armstrong on here, the slopes of the Galibier.
Well, this is the first real big test for Lance Armstrong now. I know he's seen all of these roads in training. He's prepared for the mountains of the Tour de France. His time trialling has surprised him a little bit, but the big test now is, will he survive the attacks from the Spaniards? Because it's been reported all of the Spanish teams are going to attack him today.
Well, this is Joaquim Castelblanco from Kelme. He's gone out of the front of this very small group. And I have to say one thing, Phil. US Postal Service have done a fantastic job today looking after Lance Armstrong. On the front here is Tyler Hamilton. Following him is Kevin Livingston. These two guys have certainly got to ride their hearts out today for Lance Armstrong to defend him. And one thing today that Armstrong must be thinking about, that unfortunate abandon of the man Jonathan Vaughters, because he would have been fantastic in the climbs.
The same thought was going through my mind there, Paul, but these two riders are prepared now to give their all to their new leader in Lance Armstrong. He has brought so much out of his team because of his strength, but now the Kelme boys are attacking, and this is what we expected.
Well, this is Fernando Escartin. They said they wanted to attack Armstrong in the mountains. Armstrong felt confident he must respond to these attacks, but for the moment, Phil, he hasn't got out of the saddle. He's staying in the slipstream of his two leaders, those two men in front of him who are taking him up the climb. Richard Virenque now, the Polti rider, he's attacking to get across. He realises this is a great chance to try and put the yellow jersey into difficulty.
Well, this is a little bit of a decision time now for Lance, because he's got to know when to panic and when not to panic. He might be wise to hold off for as long as he can, just to make sure that these attacks are going to go somewhere. He's allowing riders to spring clear. This is Angelo Casero who's going clear, and champion of Spain. And as the Spanish riders get up and start mixing it together here, this is going to be a tough one. Escartin, he's got to make his move early. Remember, we're racing towards Italy today. We expect to see the Italians play their part as well. Here's Virenque.
He was only brought into the Tour de France at the very last minute, but he's trying to redeem himself. He's trying to prove that he is still a competitive rider. Here we're looking here at Manuel Beltran, number 162, and the man, in fact, Escartin, who Lance Armstrong really believes is his biggest danger, and he's got Castelblanco with him. Armstrong has not responded, but you can see what's happened here because Kevin Livingstone has picked up the pace. The only man they've really got left with them now is Alex Zuller, and he's blowing that group to pieces.
One by one, the US Postal boys are giving their 110% and falling away. There's only one left with Lance Armstrong now, and that's Kevin Livingstone. Livingstone himself is going to give everything he can to the cause here. Armstrong is still waiting. Remember, this is a real tough day today, and it finishes up the mountain of Sestriere as well. After the Col de Galibier, we've got the Col de Montgenèvre, and we're getting high in the sky now, and conditions are pretty cool and miserable up here.
These are conditions just like last year when Marco Pantani jumped away from Jan Ullrich and blew the Tour de France upside down. At the end of the day, Jan Ullrich ended up losing more than 9 minutes to the little Spaniard and the little Italian. And that day, in fact, Marco Pantani put the yellow jersey on his shoulders and took them all the way to Paris. And it was on that day that the people thought that the Tour de France was over because Jan Ullrich was already installed at the top of the leaderboard.
Well, the rain is becoming more and more torrential, and where we are at Sestria, it is absolutely coming down in buckets at the moment, and we're a couple of mountains away from these riders. The Cime boys now, this was a planned attack, Paul, the way they've done one-on-one all day, but this is the serious one now because Escartine is here.
Superb strategy. They're a great team when it comes to the mountains, Cime. They've been in the professional peloton for 20 years, and they went out with that plan. They launched their man Castelblanco off the front there, and Escartine came up to him, and then they were going to work together. Arrieta is still leading the race. He's a long way up the road, but he's losing massive time. He started this climb, Phil, with 5.5 minutes advantage over the main field, and the last time check we had was in fact only 3.
Well, we're on the Galibier now, and it should be enough to see him first over the top, but I really feel that this man Arrieta is out to soften them up for Alex Zuller further back. This is Casero now, and look at this, Armstrong is riding back up to them.
The sun has come out for Lance Armstrong to shine on him because they didn't panic at all, US Postal. They waited until they got to the summit of the climb, and then they opened up the gas a little bit. Kevin Livingstone has done a remarkable job for Armstrong. Virenque is accelerating to try and get himself some points in the King of the Mountains competition, but they are going to go to Arrieta, who will go over the top in first position here.
Indeed he will, and it is Virenque who's chasing him. His colours do look alike with Casero at the moment with his Polti colours, but this man is going to stop and pull on his rain cape. Well, while he does, we can join Gary Imlach.
We haven't seen Mario Cipollini today, which is no surprise on a mountain stage, but it's not because he's gone home, which, if you'll remember, was originally the plan after the time trial in Metz. Apparently, though, Mario decided, what with his historic 4 consecutive stage wins and all, he was obliged to ride the Tour's one Italian stage, Per la Gente, for the people. And just so that La Gente would recognise him this morning, he turned up dressed as Julius Caesar, which naturally was an honour for Caesar. The excuse, not that he really needed one, was the 2099th anniversary of Caesar's birth. Either that or Chippo just wanted to force the tour organisers to fine him for a breach of the clothing regulations like they do every year. Well, the organisers obliged and slapped him with a penalty of 6,000 Swiss francs, which is about £3,000 sterling. And lighter in the pocket, but apparently weighed down by history, Chippo set off and has been languishing at the back of the field all day. And for those
climbed for the 50th time in Tour history today. Climbed for the 50th time in Tour history today. Richard Virenque is there too, and looking a little bit scratchy. He's trying to get the points as he comes clear to take second place over the top from Dufault, who's wearing that illegal racing strip for which has cost him a few bob today.
It certainly has, but they're not too worried about that at the moment. What they're worried about is getting themselves down off the Col de Galibier. Jose Luis Arrieta was first over the top, but Phil, further down the climb, Abraham Olano is having a serious problem.
Well, Olano always seems to have a problem with the Tour de France. His best finish is 4th, and again dropped on the climb. It all started to go wrong on the Col de Telegraph for him, and he's now going over the top a long way behind here. There's the whole field finding the weather not at all good, as it so often is on the first day in the mountains.
Stefano Gazzelli, the Mercatone Uno rider, on the front there. Alongside him, Giuseppe Guerini and Vladimiro Belli. But I have to say, Christophe Moreau, the Festina rider there, is doing a fantastic ride. He was currently 2nd overall in the standings, and if he recovers on the descent, he may well keep that place till tomorrow.
Well, good for him. It's a big test for him today in the mountains, but so far, Lance Armstrong and what's left of his team, which is only one rider, and that is Kevin Livingstone, has come up with the answers to the Spanish riders who have attacked really since the mountains began. This rider, Richard Virenque, again now, who hasn't taken part in the mountains competition until today, and that's what his tactic normally is. Remember, he's winning.
In that group, Pavel Tonkov, Abraham Olano, they're all trying to get themselves back up to the yellow jersey group of Lance Armstrong. In fact, both Kevin Livingstone and Tyler Hamilton are in the 2nd group on the road, so that leading group of riders, in fact, Lance Armstrong is on his own, and this is when the attacks are certain to come from Escartine and Zuller, who are on the front of the group at the moment.
Well, the field regrouped, a front group of some 9 riders getting together on the descent of the Galibier down into Briançon. And now on this climb here, Armstrong looks to be looking very, very good indeed here. We've got Casero and
the Cime rider Castelblanco in the front of this group, but in second position there is Fernando Escartin, the man who really launched a searing attack on the slopes of the Galibier. In third place, 61, is Ivan Gotti, but I reckon today he's doing a fair amount of work for Richard Virenque, who is really moving up the rankings in the King of the Mountains competition.
Well, this is Escartin and Beltran at the front now. But I don't know if you caught a glimpse of Armstrong, Paul. He looks so relaxed sitting there watching everybody, rightly so. It's not up to him to attack now. He just watches everybody making the moves. He's
Sabaria with him right on the front there, really helping him out. And the other man in the group there with him as well is Perez Rodriguez, who's doing a pretty good job looking after him.
But right now it's Manuel Beltran doing a pretty good job nursing this group with his team captain in. Alex Zula sat near the back. Beltran brought in the days of Miguel Indurain, now having to nurse, hopefully to victory, Alex Zula, who has joined the Bonesto team this year. There he is. Doesn't look as though he's enjoying it too much. He's had a terrible tour so far. He's still lost 6 minutes in the Passage du Bois, and of course he's also lost time on both time trials to Armstrong.
34th overall at the start of this morning, but he's going to climb up a fair way in the rankings, Phil. But further back in the race at the moment, Jan Kursipuu, the man who led this race for almost the whole of the first week, is in serious difficulty. Mario Cipollini is in the laughing group. I don't really know why they call it the laughing group, because it's not much fun on a day like this. So is Christophe Renero, the man who was 4th overall in the Tour de France last year. So a lot of... They did an excellent job along the Valley Road through Briançon. In fact, they pulled back Abraham Milano to within 44 seconds of this leading group with Armstrong in it. But now they've started to climb again. They're losing serious time once again. And the attacks, Phil, are certainly going to come towards the summit of this climb, because from the top of the Col de Montgenèvre, there are 30 kilometres to go to the finish in Sestriere. Half of it downhill, the rest right up to the summit in the ski resort.
And that's all on Italian roads, and this rider now would love to be the winner there at Sestriere. Ivan Gotti of the Polti team, the recent winner of the Giro d'Italia.
He doesn't seem worried at all in these mountains. People like Chris Carmichael felt that Armstrong would be stronger in the mountains than in the time trial. Confirmation of the gap back to Abraham Milano's group there, 1 minute and 20 seconds. But the big climbers of the Tour de France here are in this group with Lance Armstrong. 1 kilometre to go to the summit of the Col de Montgenèvre, and he's really doing a great job eliminating one man who he thought was a great challenger, and that's Abraham Milano.
And a rider we thought would have been a challenger too, Alexander Vinokourov. He's been dropped a lot earlier than that today and is a long way behind. Contreras setting the pace now, hoping that Escartin might do something later on. Off to the left there is Dufault in the white jersey instead of the red jersey of Seiko Cannondale. Virenque again just following the wheels and waiting to see that banner and sprint for the King of the Mountains points. There's a huge crowd here now because we're looking down at France, but in the distance is Italy.
Once they go over the summit of this climb, they go through the French border, and then as soon as they begin the descent, they go through the Italian border. And the descent down into the valley below Sestriere, Phil, is normally a pretty tricky one, but it is still damp down there because of the rain that we've been experiencing throughout most of this afternoon.
And we've had some torrential rain at Sestriere. At the moment, the sun has come out, but here in the Alps, the weather changes so quickly. This is an amazing select group of climbers here now. Beltran has given everything here in the hope that he can soften up the opposition for Alex Zula. Virenque looking as cool as a cucumber as ever, and the same has to be said of Lance Armstrong. He didn't panic when the attacks came on the Cols de Galibier and the Col de Telegraph. He allowed the moves, he's come back into the action, and now Virenque is going for the King of the Mountains points here. Looks across, Armstrong allows nothing to move.
Armstrong very attentive, just waiting for any acceleration from these climbers. He used his team perfectly as Virenque goes over the top to get maximum points there. He waited until the last possible moment, and then when he had to assume control, he went away on his own and countered all of the moves. He's riding like a real champion, like a real master tactician. That's why he's used his team, and now he has to assume control at the front of the race.
Well, he must have frightened the Spanish climbers here now, because they've seen the strength of Armstrong on these mountains today. He's ridden himself right back up to them. He's controlled them. He's alone now, and they've achieved something. At least they've isolated him, but he's proving to have all of the strength so far, and there's only one climb left to come to the finish.
the final climb of the day, and in fact it was on the descent, Phil, that those two riders got clear. But on that descent there were several crashes. One of them was Mario Cipollini, the other was Pavel Tonkov. But this is the most dangerous thing for Lance Armstrong, the attack from Fernando Escartin and Yvonne Gotti. These guys surprised Armstrong on
way up to the finish, but this chase group here trying to reorganise itself. There'll be nothing from Contreras now because he's got his man away.
Looks as if Arrieta has disappeared from this group. This is the face of Abraham Olano already on the early slopes. He's trying to ride off the group that he was with. He's limiting his losses today. If he wants to finish in the top 3 when we get up to Paris, he has to try and make sure he doesn't lose too much time to the other climbers on the mountain passes.
Well, this is Kurt van der Wouwe who's giving the Lotto team some hope that they have finally got themselves a climber on that team. Well, look at that. Armstrong has gone. He must have read our caption. 32 seconds to the two leaders, and he must have realised that is enough. He's now gone. Now, can they answer this one, Paul? Because the acceleration of this man is incredible. He's looking so good.
That was unbelievable. He took a few risks going up through the inside there because somebody could easily have closed the door on him. The reaction came from Contreras to try and pull it back. He's gone round that corner so quickly. He's taken it very wide. Alex Zulla's the man who must respond. 161, the white shirt there on the shoulders of the Banesto rider. He has to try and get up to Armstrong, but Armstrong is flying away.
He's completely broken up that group now. Contreras has tried to go, even though he's been sitting at the back since his team captain went up the road. But I don't think he's got the legs now. I'm not so sure Zulla has either here. Escartin and Gotti are the two riders out in front, but the acceleration of Armstrong is absolutely frightening here. This is the sort of move that you would have seen Eddie Merckx do in his day, and not the sort of move we ever saw Miguel Indurain do.
But look at that time gap. He's already nailed it down to 11 seconds. He's just 11 seconds behind Escartin and Gotti in the space of less than 1 kilometre. He's ripped across that gap and he's riding a superb race now. But there is a response coming from behind, and that is from Alex Zulla. Zulla realises that this is a dangerous move by Armstrong. There are the two leaders, Escartin in the green. That's Gotti in the yellow and red jersey from the Polti squad. But Armstrong has just ridden across like they were standing still.
Well, Lance Armstrong, who 18 months ago was contemplating a bleak future, never mind riding in the yellow jersey in the Tour de France, this was his big test day today, his next big test, and look how he's answered it. He's come right up to the two climbers. Goodness knows what Escartin thinks now. He's staring at the yellow jersey in the face.
Well, he must have expected to be able to put Lance Armstrong into difficulty today, because Armstrong has not really known as a major climber. This is his first real test as a leader of the Tour de France in the big mountain passes. He was 4th overall last year in the Tour of Spain, and that's when he said it was the first time he felt that he could accompany the big climbers in the big 3-week stage races. Today, he's actually staying with one of the best climbers in the Tour de France, Fernando Escartin.
Well, Escartin withdrew from the Tour last year when lying in 4th place overall because of the Spanish protest. And now this is Zulla. Zulla is trying to get across on his own, so that group has been completely blown apart now. Alex Zulla is having to ride across to join this very elite front group, and I'm not so sure he can make this. We've got 3 up front.
Well, it's amazing to see that Zulla hasn't laid down arms. You know, he had a very hard time after the 3rd day on the Tour de France when he lost over 6 minutes through the Passage au Bois. But he stayed in the bike race. He stayed concentrated. He was second to Armstrong in that time trial around Metz. And now he's trying to keep himself in the overall rankings, because whatever happens, even though he's so far down, Phil, he's climbing up the standings today. Gotti now launching an attack. He's put Escartin into difficulty. And look at that, how Armstrong responded. He just moved up alongside Gotti to say, don't worry about it, sunshine, I'm in pretty good shape today.
Well, around this corner here now, they might be able to see the chalets of Sestriere. This has been a good recovery by the Banesto rider. Zulla is inch by inch coming back up alongside these 3 front runners. So that leading group of 9 is now a very select front group of 4. Well, almost anyway.
Gotti again trying to put the others into difficulty. They've looked over the shoulders and seen the return of Alex Zulla. But this is a great ride. This is what a champion is all about. It's all about not panicking when you're put into difficulty on a climb, finding your rhythm and riding yourself back into the bike race. Alex Zulla has done exactly that. He couldn't respond to that first attack of Lance Armstrong's, but once he got himself into his own rhythm, a good climbing rhythm, he's pulled himself back up to the leaders. Armstrong now taking up first position on the road.
Well, that's what the man in the yellow jersey should do, is show everybody else who's boss. This has been a fantastic day of riding for Armstrong so far. Never panicked early on. He's joined the front line of action and now dictating the pace, and we're heading up towards the finish. Armstrong really doesn't have to ride at the front now because it's the other three who should attack him, but instead he's just driving this pace on. I do believe he's trying to crack Gotti.
Grotti was talking to his team manager there, just looking across at the Pulte team car, just having a few words to say. Sorry, Sunshine, he said, I can't attack. I'm just happy to stay here on the wheel of Lance Armstrong. His face is a picture of concentration. He's not showing any emotion at all. He's getting on with the job in hand. He's concentrated on getting those pedals round as quickly as possible. And again, Phil, he's reminding me very much of Miguel Indurain, the way he's pedaling. There's Johan Brunel coming up alongside in the US Postal team car. Few words with Lance Armstrong. Let's not forget, Johan Brunel has been a great tactician over the first week of this tour.
But really, he's got to be surprised by the riding of Armstrong, and he must be worried too that this man is giving away too much energy with the Pyrenees still to come and the final time trial. He's looking at 2 weeks in yellow at this point. And now look at him. He's lifted the pace again. Gotti is in trouble, and Escartine isn't looking too happy either.
Gotti couldn't stay on the wheel of Lance Armstrong, and it was up to Fernando Escartine to respond. He's losing 2 or 3 bike lengths there, but that's not a problem. He's going to close it down on Lance Armstrong because he is a fantastic climber. But in fact, Armstrong looking over his shoulder, he's seen he's got the gap and he's going to keep going.
I think you're absolutely right, and in fact Armstrong here is just lifting his pace, and he's just riding 3 of the finest climbers in the world off his wheel, and he's jumped out of the saddle. He's suddenly accelerated, and look at the gap.
Well, he couldn't believe it. He looked over his shoulder and saw that he had a gap. He could see that they weren't responding to him. And that's when he got out of the saddle. That's when the attack came. He already had 10 lengths advantage. This is phenomenal. He's out of the saddle, pushing it home now. And this is when he's really got to stick the knife into the wound and go for it to the summit of this climb. The first day in the mountains come down with a big hammer on the head of the climbers.
Well, Armstrong came to the Tour de France as an outsider, possibly to finish well up. But now he really is looking like the possible winner of the Tour de France here. He's won both time trials. He's now heading up to a likely victory here at Sestriere. If you can win the time trials and you win the mountains, well, there's not much left but to win the Tour de France. And here's Sestriere. There's the finishing line up there. He has ridden these riders off his wheel. Further down now, Richard Virenque, the new leader in the King of the Mountains, riding with Contreras.
Armstrong is looking very controlled. He's not in any difficulty at all at the moment, Phil, and it's quite remarkable to think that he's turning Sestriere into Beach Mountain. Beach Mountain, the mountaintop finish where he won in the Tour du Pont back in 1996, and today he's really riding away from the best in the world at the Tour de France. And when you think what he was told in 1996, it's remarkable to see not only him wearing the yellow jersey, but actually trouncing the field at the Tour de France.
Well, it wasn't far from Beach Mountain, North Carolina, in Boone, where Lance Armstrong found himself last year after going home from Paris-Nice, and he's come back. He came back and he finished 4th in the Tour of Spain, 4th in the World Time Trial Championship, 4th in the World Road Race, and that surely gave him the confidence that he could ride a great Tour de France. His whole season has been focused on it, and now Zuller is seemingly the only man between him and victory in Paris, because here he goes. He's dropped the other 2 and he's trying to reach Lance for the 2nd time on this climb.
Unbelievable. Alex Zuller will not give up. He will not lie down at the side of the road. He realises he has to try and keep himself in the bike race. Anything can happen to Lance Armstrong over the next couple of weeks, so he has to keep riding hard. But Armstrong is opening up the gap right now. It's 30 seconds from Armstrong back to Zuller, and this is a phenomenal ride. We always said that the stage to Sestriere was going to be an epic ride, and it is an epic performance here by Lance Armstrong after winning the time trial and coming back on the first day in the mountains with the yellow jersey and riding so dominantly. I can't remember the last time I saw a yellow jersey ride like that.
Well, this man is now proving to be quite unbelievable here, because he's broken clear of everybody. He's eliminated them one by one on the mountains of the Alps today, over some of the classic mountains of this race. He's now in the last kilometre of 213.5 kilometres today, and he could well now be the winner at Sestriere. I do not see anybody coming back. He's 25 seconds ahead of Alex Zuller.
And the most important thing for Armstrong today is he's opening up time gaps again on every one of his challenges. Not only did he put a big time gap between himself and them on the time trial stage, but he's doing it in the mountains as well. And that's what you need to do if you're going to go forward and win the Tour de France. But Armstrong is concentrated now. It's exactly the same face he had in the time trial just a couple of days ago, Phil. He's riding up to the summit of this mountain all on his own, no help from anyone, as quickly as he can.
He knows that with every turn of those pedals, he is going going to an even bigger lead in the Tour de France because Christophe Moreau has been dropped and is minutes behind now. Alano, who was third overall, is also behind and losing, ending up to 4 minutes. So this has been an incredible ride by him. And Alex Zula, who lost 6 minutes on day 2 of the Tour, is likely to be right up in the overall classification tonight. That's where we are, right on the far right of our picture. And this man, Lance Armstrong from Texas, is going to win a mountain stage. And Paul, even in the great days of Miguel Indurain, he only ever won the time trials.
That was all Miguel did. He planned his strategy to be on the time trials and just to survive in the mountains. He never went out with a real fist to try and take the mountain stages like this. Armstrong is riding a phenomenal race here. He rode sensibly over the first climbs of the day. He was very good on the Col de Galibier when he used his team. He never panicked when the climbers started to attack him. But once he was isolated at the bottom of Sestriere, he looked at the other climbers and he didn't even attack them, Phil. That's the amazing thing. He just blew them off his wheel.
Absolutely. Well, after his time trials, everybody said, oh yes, but how about the mountains? Well, here's the answer now, because Armstrong has ridden the first day in the mountains better than anyone else. His team were absolutely brilliant at the start. They nursed him and kept him as fresh as possible. He could handle the finish himself, as he's now proving. The finishing line is just up the road.
His last time check we got to Alex Zula, who's second on the road at the moment, is 45 seconds. So Armstrong is opening up serious gaps. Very shortly he will get right into the town of Sestriere, and for the first time since the valley, the road will flatten out a little bit and he will get a chance to breathe a little bit more freely, because then he will know that he's going to get the stage victory and increase his lead. The Stars and Stripes, they're all over France and Italy now, Phil, because this man is starting to get himself a pretty serious following.
But it's a long time since it flew for the leader on the yellow jersey of the Tour de France, and now it's flying for Lance Armstrong. This incredible fairy tale for him as he now pounds the road of Sestriere to an increase in his overall lead in the Tour de France. Armstrong has ridden brilliantly as he comes up towards the line. The rain has started to come down again. It's been off, on, off all day, but Lance Armstrong isn't going to worry about this because his day is almost done as he races into the Italian village of Sestriere, where some of the great champions have won here in the past. But this man has got to be one of the greatest now. He looks over his shoulder. He will see no one. Zula is around about 30 seconds behind. He does up the zip on his maillot jaune, and he's going to feel very safe tonight, even though we have a really tough day to Alpe d'Huez tomorrow in the mountains. Armstrong now has destroyed the field. He has spread them across the mountain by the best part of an hour today. A number of riders have given up, and the arms go up in salute. Lance Armstrong looks to the sky, no doubt in memory of his friend Casatelli, who died in the Tour de France and of course was an Italian. Armstrong across the line, going further down the road now, Paul. This man is losing more time and still proving best of the rest.
He certainly is best of the rest. This would be a completely different bike race if he hadn't lost over 6 minutes on the third day of this race on the Passage au Gois. In fact, he's recovered quite a bit over the last kilometres. He's just 31 seconds behind Armstrong, and Fernando Escartin, the early attacker, he's losing some serious time.
Now, can Gotti take him on? Because Gotti will be the best Italian to finish atop of Sestriere now. But Escartin, who played his cards well, in the end was beaten by Armstrong and finishes third. Gotti is fourth. The race continues now. Beltran rode a brilliant race for Zula and got him into second place as well. He comes over ahead of Richard Virenque, and Contreras will come over in seventh place. Well, this has been a smashing of the greats here in the mountain stage at Sestriere, and Lance Armstrong has proved the best of them all today.
A lot of people expected the climbs to go out for you today. You actually turned the tables around and gave them a big slap in the face.
Well, I wanted to answer some questions about that, because there was a lot of people that that figured my climbing was suspect, and
you answered that today.
No, I mean I gave a response, but I wasn't trying to shove it in anybody's face. I just wanted to. I felt good. I saw an opportunity. So Dufault was dropped. Dufault was my main concern, and when he was dropped, then I went.
And did he go? Lance Armstrong winning, 31 seconds ahead of Alex Zula, 1:26 ahead of Escartin and Gotti. And Kurt van der Wouw there of Lotto came up good at the end, 8th place for him, 3:10 back. And riders coming in all the time as the bad weather continued to close in on the field. Abraham Olano lost 3 minutes 10 seconds, while Laurent Dufaux lost 3.5 minutes, and that was a lot. Christophe Moreau, he descended from second overall by losing 5 minutes and 4 seconds, and Pavel Tonkov, who crashed 5 minutes 4 seconds, lost for him as well. Lance Armstrong looking very, very good in the maillot jaune now, because his lead is beginning to grow and grow. 6 minutes and 3 seconds over Abraham Olano, 7:44 over Moreau's done well to hold on to third. Zuller is slowly climbing out of the depths of this race, 7:47 back, but in fourth place overall. Fernando Escartin did his best today, but he's still 9 minutes and 1 second off the pace. But look at this now, 10 minutes 34 to Tonkov. The new leader in the King of the Mountains is Richard Virenque, by just a couple of points ahead of Lance Armstrong, who followed him over the mountains today. And in the green jersey, Stuart O'Grady's got a firm grip on that for the moment, at least, ahead of Eric Zabel. And this man, the former leader in the green jersey, he went out today, abandoned, while poor old Mario Cipollini crashed and was forced to abandon. Tonkov, who also crashed, did finish. So to the 10th stage, 220 kilometres. We're now bound for the mecca of world cycling, Alpe d'Huez. And Paul, if Armstrong is in a mood like he was yesterday, everybody's in trouble.
Again, this is a very difficult stage, but it's a long stage, 220 kilometres. Zevgeny Spruk, one of the riders who crashed as well yesterday, didn't start this morning, so the field at the Tour de France is starting to be reduced in serious numbers. But over the first climbs, the riders didn't really want to race, Phil, but already several riders were put into serious difficulty, and one man who it's reported is not in very good shape is Axel Merckx.
Well, that really is sad, because Father Eddie is following in the team cars today, watching son Axel. But it's Bastille Day, by the way, and we've not had a French stage winner yet. The last Frenchman to win on Bastille Day was Laurent Jalabert, and he isn't even here.
He's over the road from here in Switzerland, where he calls home these days, and he won't start racing again till after the Tour de France. But the first sprint point of the day, it was obviously going to be Eric Zabel, who was out there trying to get himself back up there in the King of the Sprints competition. He's in the pink and white, but right on his shoulders there in the green is Stuart O'Grady.
And this has become a great battle between these two riders. Zabel getting it, though, ahead of O'Grady and Christophe Capel. And so Zabel is nibbling closer once more to O'Grady. Remember, he's aiming for Sean Kelly's record of 4 wins straight. Onto the Col du Mont-Cenis, 67 kilometres covered, and Axel Merckx decided to abandon the race, and going with him, the Lamprey rider Jan Zverada. He was the man caught up in that melee with Tom Steels a few days ago. Onto the top of the climb, Konishev, again, surprise points for Dimitri, followed by Virenque and Mondini, Gianpaolo Mondini there, coming over in third place.
But the big climb of the day is going to be the Col de la Croix de Fer. That really is a mother of a climb, because at 155 kilometres covered, that's where the race really did start to split to pieces. But again, I tell you, Phil, the US Postal Service did a great job, but 2 riders out in the lead, Stéphane Hurlot and Thierry Bourguignon, had a great advantage over the rest of the pack.
In fact, almost 5 minutes over Roland Meyer there, and Richard Virenque leading up to the best of the rest, 6 minutes and 11 seconds behind Stéphane Hurlot. Remember that Hurlot is trying to get a French stage win here. They haven't had one yet, as they're heading out now towards Bourg d'Oisans and up the climb of Alpe d'Huez. And that's where we are now, and these 2 riders, Paul, are still clear.
Still clear, but it's not by very much. Their advantage was really starting to crumble. At the bottom of the climb, it was 4 minutes and 50 seconds. But you can see here, Stéphane Hurlot is fighting to survive. He's struggling and hoping that he can hold on to at least some of that advantage up to the top. Because for a Frenchman to win on Bastille Day at the Alpe d'Huez would be a great victory.
Well, they got away at 77 kilometres covered today, Hurlot and Bourguignon. There's the devil. And it looks to me as though he may have put the curse on Bourguignon, because he doesn't look at all well, and he's looked as though he's been suffering since this climb began. Hurlot is now having to go for it or lose the stage, and he's been simply brilliant so far today.
Stéphane Hurlot has been in 1 or 2 good breakaways since the very start of this Tour de France, so hopefully Mother Chance will smile on him this afternoon. A former wearer of the yellow jersey in the Tour de France and a former national champion, but that is where he has to drag his body. Alpe d'Huez, 22 corners to get yourself up to the summit. At the bottom of the climb field, the main field is already starting.
And just look at this. Again, Armstrong is here in a great position. And again, he's left with just one rider to look after him, Tyler Hamilton. This is Roland Meyer coming back. He tried to catch up with the other two. He's failed. And just look at the way Hamilton has attacked the slopes of Alpe d'Huez there, Paul.
Unbelievable. Great job by Hamilton. But further up the road, the French are all shouting for this man, Stefan Erlo, who is trying to hang on. He's going to lose serious time, but if he can get himself into a good rhythm, he just might do enough to hold on and get the stage victory at the summit of this climb. The former French champion, not too happy there with the encouragements. These spectators sometimes get a little overzealous, and I've seen riders get knocked off by them.
What spectators seem to forget is that these riders are going through all sorts of pain here. They're trying to compose themselves, concentrate on the climb, and the last thing they want are people touching them, of course. Erlo continues the climb up here, and there's nobody with him now. Bourguignon has dropped right back down the climb. Erlo, he knows this climb as well as anybody. Back to the chase group here, and again Tyler is riding simply brilliantly in the command of Armstrong.
For the time advantage of Stefan Erlo is still 3 minutes and 30 seconds, so he hasn't lost an awful lot despite the big effort on the front of the main field by Tyler Hamilton. Armstrong is riding like a true champion, Phil. He's moving up into second place behind his teammate to show the other riders in this group that he is still strong and he's not worried about any attacks. But this group here is really starting to suffer. This is a group that was caught in between. This is the former champion of France, Francois Cime.
And they are in a little bit of difficulty, I think, because Simon has been yo-yoing at the back for a little while now, although you've got to hand it to him. He's a very courageous rider, and so too is Tyler Hamilton today. He's going to survive as long as he possibly can, but once more he's playing a perfect role here to keep Armstrong as fresh as possible. And the speed of these riders on the climb.
Unbelievable. You can see on Tyler Hamilton's right knee there's in fact a little bandage. That was because he also was involved in a crash yesterday, as was Kevin Livingston on the descent down towards Sestriere.
Well, this is Manuel Beltran, who's gone off that Armstrong group and is trying to get away now. So this will cause a reaction because the group is only just there. Paul, can you remember the last time we saw such a big bunch of riders so near the front?
A long time since I've seen such a big group of riders on the slopes of the Alpe d'Huez. But what's happening now is Bonette are trying to take a page out of the book of Cime from yesterday, the tactical book. They're launching Beltran up the road, and the idea is hopefully if Alex Zula's got anything in his legs, he can jump across the gap, and that will leave then two riders from the Bonette squad in front of Armstrong. And again, they seriously want to try and test him on these climbs. They realised he was impressive yesterday, but they reckon if they can hit him 2 days on the run, they might have a chance to crack him.
Well, it's so often been proved in the past. You have one good day, then you have one bad day in the 2 days of racing in the Alps. And Armstrong had a simply stupendous day yesterday. Now, is he riding with a little bit more, should we say, common sense here? Because he's just watching the moves from this group, and two more riders have now got themselves off the front as well. Remember, it's Stefan Erlo up front, then we've got Beltran, and now we've got a couple of guys chasing.
This is Benoit Salmon, the casino rider on the front. And again, look at this, Phil. Contreras has come across. He's the rider from Cime, and they're trying to do it again. They're trying to set something up for Fernando Escartin. A good move by Cime, and they're going to have now a Cime rider and a Bonette rider up the road, and that is an excellent tactical maneuver. They're still trying to surprise Armstrong, but you see, he doesn't attack or chase any of these lesser riders. He's waiting for the big names like Zula and Escartin to attack themselves.
And Contreras is actually a very good rider, winning his own national tour in Colombia this year, and he looked the wrong way there because Salmon has just stepped up the pace a little bit. And this young man, by the way, is looking like the best rookie of the tour right now as he heads up the best young riders classification. He's certainly climbing well.
Further up the slope, Stefan Erlo is still leading the race, but in fact he's 2 minutes now ahead of Thierry Bourguignon, and the group with the yellow jersey and Lance Armstrong is at 3 minutes and 5 seconds.
So this is Beltran, and if they join him, that'll be three useful riders on the ascent of Alpe d'Huez. Just up around the corner, I think we're going to find... Well, let's go back here, because this is Escartin who's gone now. So Contreras softened up the rest of them, and now Escartin is gone. He's had to go reasonably early on the climb, because if he's going to win time, he's got to allow himself the space to do it.
But Tyler Hamilton was suffering there. He looked over his shoulder at Lance Armstrong as if to say, come on, Lance, you go for it. I've got nothing left at all. It's up to you to assume control again. But this, again, is the same tactics from Cime as it was yesterday. Contreras has gone, now joined by Escartin, and they're going to try and really put the hammer down and open up the time gaps on Armstrong again. Escartin now needs to get himself big time to pull himself closer to Armstrong in the overall rankings.
And Contreras knew that move was coming. He kept looking over his shoulder to see where Escartin was. Now he knows he's up alongside him. There's reaction from Tonkov now. Had such a bad day yesterday with that fall and was so desperately disappointed, but he's now trying to soften up the group as well.
And still, there's no reaction from the yellow jersey. He's letting these guys move clear. He's riding very intelligently, but I do think he's going to have to react pretty soon to that attack by Escartin, because he's always said over the first week of the Tour, the two biggest men that I fear are Fernando Escartin and Alex Zülle. He's not too worried now about number 31, Pavel Tonkov. Tonkov lost a lot of time yesterday, more than 5 minutes by the end of the day. He is trying to get himself the stage victory.
Well, you know, you think of the nationalities in the lead, and the nationalities have won at the top of Alpe d'Huez. They've only ever had one Spanish winner there, one American, that was Andy Hampsten, one Frenchman and one Colombian winner. The Dutch and the Italians hold the monopoly with 6 wins for Italy and 8 for the Netherlands. And now Armstrong has accelerated and is almost as easy as you like. He started to pick up those riders, starting with Tonkov. We're back up the front now, and this rider suffering all shades of agony here now, Stefan Erlo. And they are coming slowly but surely towards him. Tonkov has gone again.
This is an amazing style of Tonkov. He never looks to be suffering on the climbs. He uses a massive gear compared to most of the other climbers, but he will, on a good day, keep going and going till he snaps the elastic. There is a reaction coming from behind. It looks this time as if it's Alex Zülle's gone after him, so Armstrong has to react. There is Armstrong, a little bit off the pace. He hasn't quite got onto Zülle's wheel.
Well, this is unbelievable now, because all of the riders are trying one-on-one to crack Lance Armstrong, who's sitting there pedaling that low gear as if he's on a Sunday outing, and he's just watching these riders destroy themselves right in front of him.
Zülle saw his chance there. He came up to the wheel of Tonkov and responded with an attack. Richard Virenque is on the wheel of Lance Armstrong, suffering to try and stay there, suffering to stay with the group. Armstrong has responded very well to the attack by Alex Zülle there, and just a little further up the road now you can see the group of Fernando Escartin, so he's pulling himself back up slowly to the leaders once again.
Well, it's not often you see Richard Virenque suffer like this on a climb, but suffer he most certainly is. But you know, he keeps looking down and seeing that polka dot jersey on his shoulders, which says, hey, I'm the best climber, and I'm being forced to follow here now by a lot of riders, and I think that's probably keeping him in touch right now, because he's in trouble.
He really is in trouble. He's digging deep, probably deeper than he's ever dug before, to stay in contact with this group. Up the road, though, just 7 kilometres left to go to the finish for Stefan Erlo, and he's still holding on to 1.5 minutes of his advantage. If he can get just a bit closer to the finish, he may well pull it off for the French. Caught in the middle, though, the man who is becoming a real favourite with the crowd, Thierry Bourguignon, you can see they are right behind this Frenchman. He's the oldest rider in the race at 37 years of age, and he's nearly always finished his tours, and he's finished up as high as 20th in the overall standings.
He's a class bike rider, but he's about to be picked up by a lot of class bike riders here who have attacked one another all the way up these slopes, and they've regrouped, believe it or not, as Bourguignon is now being caught by them. This is absolutely incredible here as first Beltran goes through, followed by Alex Zülle. Look at the tempo of these two riders on the Spanish Benesto team, and Beltran still looks good.
Once you've got the pressure on, you have to keep it up there, especially on a slope like the Alpe d'Huez. Escartin moving up very nicely into 3rd place, and Armstrong is in 4th in the yellow jersey. They're keeping a very close eye on operations. He's responded to the attacks. They came on the back of this group. There's a recovery there from Giuseppe Guerini, the Italian rider on the Telecom squad. He was dropped earlier on, but he's managed to pull himself back into the race, and still Stefan Erlo is hanging on.
Oh dear me, clinging is the word now, and it's not nice to see a German flag waved at you either. But look at this, 4 kilometres from the summit. He will see the chalets now right up the top of Alpe d'Huez, and 4 kilometres on the road would take him about 6.5 minutes. But here, it's going to take him a lot longer than that. They're right behind him.
They're right behind him. 15 seconds is the official time cap coming from Race Radio. Armstrong still looks calm and collected. He'll be happy with today's performance. The closer he gets to the finish, the more confident he's going to feel, and he may well have a go at trying to get the stage victory today after that magnificent win yesterday at Sestriere. But there is the man who set the race alight, Stefan Erlo, Phil, and it's all over for him on Bastille Day.
130 kilometres in the lead for Stefan Erlo. He's resigned to the capture. That's a great shame in many ways. Shakes his head as he sees them go through. He can't possibly hold on to them, but he's going to have a little go, I think, as Armstrong goes by him, followed by Tonkov, and then comes Contreras. He can't possibly hang on to the tail now. The winner will come from this group.
Beltran on the front, 163 from Banesto. He's keeping the pressure on. He's probably hoping that the win can go to their man, Alex Zuller. That is where they still have to climb. It's a horrendous climb. The attack now comes from Guerini. He's been sitting at the back, and he might well cause the surprise. The reaction, though, comes from Tonkov. He wants the win as well today.
Well, Tonkov's still smarting after his bad day yesterday. He's done nothing but attack on this climb, but all of a sudden he eases up. He hasn't got the answer. Alex Zuller looked at him and didn't like the way he sat up there because he allowed the gap to open, and he's caught Zuller too. Zuller is winded as Guerini just looks over his shoulder, and looking at his face, he looks pretty cool at the moment.
Well, that attack has blown away Beltran. He did a lot of work for Alex Zuller. Zuller looks to me as if he's got the measure of Guerini. It's down to about 30 metres, but Guerini's still out of the saddle, still bouncing away. This young man was brought across to the telecom team to help Jan Ulrich this year in the mountains, but there is no Jan Ulrich, so he gets a free card to ride the way he wants to on the mountain passes. But it looks as if, in fact, Zuller has cracked, because now he's seriously opened up a gap. It's around about 15 seconds they've sat up.
Well, Guerini starts to go clear now, but what a select group they've got behind, and they don't know how to break each other up at all as they continue to come up. Now, Guerini is not going to upset Lance Armstrong's overall lead in the Tour just yet, and so there's no reason for Lance to counter the move.
It's the other riders in the group who have to attack if they want to get the stage victory. Everybody wants to have a stage victory at the Alpe d'Huez on their palmarès. There, Tonkov has decided he's not going to lay down arms. He's gone clear. And Richard Virenque, I don't know where he's getting this strength from, Phil, but he has recovered, chased immediately by Escartine, and they looked as if, in fact, they put Armstrong into difficulty there with these constant accelerations. Armstrong doesn't seem to have the repetitive accelerations that the climbers have, but he lets them go and he pulls himself back slowly into the group.
Winds them back in, and still Richard Virenque is tagged onto the back. There is Lance Armstrong, the perspiration running off him. Giuseppe Guerini is the man up front, chased by Pavel Tonkov. Escartine is still there on the left. In the middle is Alex Zuller, also there. And it looks as though Tonkov now back in the fold at the head of this little group. Well, here is Guerini. Now, the last race he won was back in 1998. He won the 17th stage of the Giro d'Italia. Now he's looking to try and win the 10th stage of the Tour de France, and that would be a first. Another acceleration by Tonkov.
Tonkov really wants it. He knows that he cannot slow down now. 20 seconds is the advantage of Guerini, and Tonkov has decided, I've got to go now. I've got to try and get the win at the top of the Alpe d'Huez for Russia. The response coming from behind, but now it looks as if Tonkov has broken the elastic, and he has managed to get away from the other leaders of the Tour de France, and they will now, Phil, start to watch each other. Escartine is going to watch Zuller. Zuller is going to watch Armstrong, but for this man, Guerini, this is what he's been waiting for. The red kite, the Flamme Rouge, just 1 kilometre left to go to the finish. His advantage 20 seconds over the rest.
And now it's just 900 metres from the finish, and what will be the greatest win of his career here. And what on earth has happened? Good, I don't know what to say, because Paul, that guy just stood in the middle of the road, and Guerini has hit him. Now he had 20 seconds, and the time gap is coming down rapidly.
They'll come back pretty quickly, Phil. They've managed to get a bit of a recovery there. This is how it happened. That photographer there stood in the middle of the road. He didn't realise the distance. Guerini went straight into him. He must have really panicked when that happened. In fact, the guy who knocked him off didn't even try to help him back onto his bike. But right behind him now, he must be able to smell Tonkov. He can feel the breath of the Russian on his shoulders there, and he knows now he's got to give everything. I don't know where he's going to get his strength from now, because Tonkov is closing fast.
But look at the adrenaline flowing now on this man as he starts to make his way across the town of Alpe d'Huez, heading towards the finish. They're not going to catch him, and neither should they, because that was grossly unfair if he'd have lost the Tour because of that crash, and it would have caused an awful lot of embarrassment to that young man. But now it's all okay, because Giuseppe Guerini is doing up the zip on his racing jersey, just making sure that Tonkov is not catching him as he heads towards the line now. The adrenaline absolutely coursing through those veins as he races across the wide roads on the top of the mountain here. This is the last left-hander now, where Greg LeMond once came around with Bernard Hinault, and they tried to get a dead heat, and the judges gave it to Bernard Hinault. An American again in yellow, but this man well deserves the stage win now. He wasn't foiled by the accident to the photographer. He keeps looking back. He knows they're coming close, but it's all okay for Giuseppe Guerini. 29 years of age, and his biggest win since he got the 17th stage of the Giro d'Italia, which is over 1 year ago. And look at that time, what a long day this has been. But Guerini gets the win.
Incredible performance. I don't know where he got that strength from, Phil, over the last few moments. Tonkov was closing down on him, but Tonkov himself slowed down towards the end. Tonkov is going to hold on for second place, but there's a big attack coming there from Fernando Escartin, trying to get just a few more seconds on Armstrong, but it's Zuller taking up the chase, and Armstrong's going to be pretty happy there to sit across the line in 5th place.
So Tonkov comes in, and Armstrong will be given the same time as that group, so all of the men who matter are right there alongside him. There's the result. Guerini by 21 seconds, 4 seconds better than Escartin. This man is all smiles, but it could have been so very, very different.
Sì, ho visto che si è messo in mezzo alla strada per farmi fare una foto, poi io ero indeciso se passare a destra o a sinistra, e per tagliare la strada e farla più corta sono andato a sinistra e lui si è spostato proprio a sinistra e mi è venuto addosso.
How embarrassing was that? Well, Lance Armstrong came into the Alps with a lead of 2:20 over Christophe Moreau. He's going to leave them with a lead of 7 minutes 42 over Abraham Olano. And can you imagine how happy Lance Armstrong is now? Well, as he salutes the crowd here, we can now join him as he talks once more with Paul Sherwin.
Would you not like to have won at Alpe d'Huez, because the last American to win here was Andy Hampson, your former teammate?
It's definitely a stage that is special, and it's actually more special than most because it holds so much mystique. But you can win every day.
Any thoughts of responding to the attack of Guerini, or were you just happy to keep an eye on Escartin and Zuller?
Yeah, no, I needed to. Today I didn't need to attack, and I didn't need to try and win. I needed to keep my rivals in check, and Olano was dropped, and some other favorites were dropped, so it was a good situation. The only thing I needed to do is be steady.
Oh, it makes it sound easy, doesn't he? Well, Richard Virenque has had a good couple of days as well. 29 points clear in the King of the Mountains, while Stuart O'Grady is still clear of Eric Zabel in that race for the green jersey. The mountains are more or less behind us now as we run towards St Etienne, but as Paul Sherwin knows, it's pretty hilly around the back of the city.
It certainly is. This is the next 4 days of the Tour de France, Phil, are going to be very difficult. Although they are leaving the Alps behind, these roads around here leading down to the Pyrenees are very difficult, and the temperature, although it says 25 degrees Celsius, can climb up very easily to 35 degrees C and make it a very difficult, long, hard day in the saddle.
And it wouldn't be a Tour de France, wouldn't it, without the sunflowers there? But this man not interested in looking at the flowers because he was in a group which broke away, and he's gone clear of that group now, and we're just under 30 kilometres from the finish. Ludo Dirksen, the champion of Belgium, he's only won one race this year, and that was it.
If you're going to win one race, it might as well be the national champion, because you get yourself a pretty smart jersey that you can put on your shoulders for the next 12 months. But this man rode a brilliant race at the Belgian Championships just 1 week before the start of the Tour de France, and I was surprised to see him attack this group of riders that he was with. There were in fact 7 riders got clear of the peloton, built themselves up a lead in excess of 16 minutes, and they're now on the final climb of the day, the Col de la Croix de Chabouret, and there's no reaction at all, Phil, in the main field.
Well, it's like a club run at the back, because they're more than 16 minutes behind now as they've gone under that 25 kilometres to go banner, because all the riders who broke away here didn't affect the overall by a long way, and this rider has decided to go for what would be the greatest moment of a career which has not been going very long. He turned professional at 29 because he was a truck driver. He used to paint them, in fact, and now he's found himself as a good bike rider. Arriving in St Etienne then, Ludo Dirksen has a good lead over the rest of the breakaway. They've tried to chase him down the mountains, but to no avail at all. He's going to enjoy this next couple of minutes now.
This is a great moment for a man to be able to win a stage of the Tour de France, but even to win a stage of the Tour de France with a national champion's jersey on your shoulders, it is magnificent. He doesn't have too much to worry about because the rest of the group, Phil, are more than a minute behind.
And the main field has now been timed at more than 20 minutes behind. So Ludo Dirksen is going to climb up the overall classification tonight, but it won't worry him too much because he started the day 74 minutes behind Lance Armstrong. He won't be thinking about that now. Now, the race here for second place, and Alexander Vinokourov leading them out. I must say, a rider we expected to be in for the overall, but hasn't been. Vladimir Belli then going for it now. Vladimir Belli, and also in third line is Konishev, who's having his best tour for years here, Dmitry Konishev. Now, he used to be a good sprinter. He's won the last stage in Paris before now, and it looks like he's going to have a clear shot at second place. So Konishev coming forward, just getting Vinokurov on the line, and behind comes Vladimir Belly. And the rest of the breakaway drifting in. There's the time gap to the right of the screen. Rick Verbrugge there. Another Belgian, but this is the Belgian who'll grab the headlines tomorrow. The champion of Belgium, Ludo Dirksen's getting his first stage win in the Tour. Here's the main field. Look at the clock on the left, but Eric Zabel still needs points for that green jersey of Stuart O'Grady, and he wins the bunch sprint as well. That was for 8th place today. And again, he has beaten Stuart O'Grady in a sprint. This is the man who gets the flowers today in St Etienne, though. The end of the 11th stage, Ludo Dirksen's ahead of Dmitry Konishev, Vinokurov, Belly and Verbrugge. Overall, though, no change at all. Alano, Zuller, Dufault, Escartine are still the riders closest to Lance Armstrong. And the next, as we look down here on the city of St Etienne, the riders now will continue what will be hot and sultry days as we head towards the south and our next destination, the Pyrenees. And so to stage 12, 201 kilometres from Saint-Galmier down to Saint-Flour. And the undulations continue under a very hot sun today, Paul.
Well, these days are really going to wear out the US Postal Service team, Phil, because for the last few days, all they have been doing is sitting on the front of the main pack. Despite the fact that the breakaways have been going clear, they've had to assume control of the race, and that is going to wear them down. The breakaway got away again today, and it was David Echavarria who led them into the town.
And among the riders abandoning, Ivan Gotti has gone today, and this rider dreaming now of his first stage win in his Tour de France, because he's now heading up to what is a nasty little climb up towards the finishing line. He was part of a group of 14 riders, and he's now decided to give it a go for the finish.
It's really going to be a question of survival. His advantage over these chasing group of 3 is in only 20 seconds at the moment. Francois Simon is leading them, the French national champion. He's looking for a victory for France. Alberto Eli is the telecom rider in the pink and white jersey, and Steve de Wolf is the Belgian rider just on the back. In fact, Echavarria has stretched it out to 24 seconds, and the rest of the group more than a minute behind.
And we've called it the Stefan Erlo group. That man has been in so many escapes, and he's yet to get a result out of a day's racing in the Tour de France. He came close at Alpe d'Huez. 2 kilometres to go now for the 3 pursuers of De Wolf, Eli and Simon, but they're getting no closer to little David Echavarria. He is a rider that started out as a sprinter, having been the ex-amateur champion of Spain, but he's developed into a very good stage race rider because he's won the Tour de l'Avenir, what used to be known as the amateur Tour de France, and now it looks as though the pressure's going on here now as again Francois Simon is trying to go clear as he races under the kilometre to go.
Well, Simon got a lone victory at the National Championships himself just 1 week before the Tour de France, and this was the kind of finish that it was, but he's not going to do anything to catch David Echavarria because today the victory is going to go to Spain.
So the Once boys are losing ground with their team leader Abraham Olano, but this young man is very much going forward now. His first stage victory in a Tour de France, and he's making the most of this. Little David Echavarria. And a good breakaway, late as it was by the champion of France, but still the French are being denied a stage win in this year's Tour. As they come up to the line, it's Simon gets second this time around. And they're still looking for a stage win. It's never happened, by the way, when they haven't won at least one stage since 1926. Here comes Alberto Eli. He will go across the line in 3rd place. And none of these riders, by the way, approaching Lance Armstrong in that leader's yellow jersey. So Lance Armstrong quite happy with the way the race is going at the moment, as the riders will continue through the heat of this area. The main field, again, are losing big chunks of time today, and again, Zabel is proving best of the rest. So Zabel now is beginning to prove he is the best man for that green jersey. There's the result of the day, and Frédéric Bessy of France getting 7th place. All these riders in the original breakaway. Hello and welcome to the Tour de France. Well, yesterday should have been a fairly routine stage through the Massif Central, but for some of the riders it brought all of the emotions of this great event: happiness, sadness and mixed feelings. It was happiness for little Spaniard David Echavarria, who won the stage, his first in a Tour. For Stefan Erlo of France, part of yesterday's long escape, he climbed to 6th overall. But it was sadness for the Swede Magnus Backstedt. who, with an injured knee, retired in tears. Australian Stuart O'Grady has hated these travel days between the Alps and the Pyrenees, and yesterday he trailed home and lost his green jersey to Eric Zabel. Another Aussie, Jay Sweet, carries the weight of the Lanterne Rouge, and the last man of the Tour, although playing to the crowd, is very tired. And even the favourites made mistakes. Abraham Olano lost 2 seconds in the uphill finish as Lance Armstrong and Alex Zülle sprinted ahead. Overall, Lance Armstrong still has his lead intact, while Alex Zülle is now only 3 seconds behind Abraham Olano. Up into the top 8 is Stefan Erlo. And to add to a controversial day, Lance Armstrong, who conserved his big lead, has found other adversaries among the media. Some newspapers, especially here in France, are alluding to the fact he must be taking illegal stimulants. Because of these spurious remarks, Lance Armstrong walked to the obligatory anti-doping control yesterday without speaking to anyone, and it will stay that way until a press conference on Monday afternoon. That was confirmed by the team's general manager, Mark Gorski, when he spoke to Paul Schoen this morning on the telephone from the team's hotel just before they left for the start.
He and I have decided that he's just going to take 2 or 3 days where he's going to take some time off from doing the interviews just to provide him a little more time to recuperate. I think Lance is, without question, the best athlete in the professional peloton. He doesn't need any performance-enhancing substances to be the best, and I think the fact that it's a fairly level playing field this year is why he's winning the race. I think he's angered by the allegations, and there's certainly no truth to them at all. He's taken a couple days off, as we just said, from any more media interviews. He's done an awful lot in the last week, and he will be doing a press conference on Monday afternoon.
He is definitely not taking performance-enhancing drugs. Can you confirm that?
Yeah, it's part of a very strong team policy that we have on the U.S. Postal Service team. It's in every rider's contract. There's no gray areas like there may be on some other teams, and we're very clear on it. And I have no doubts that Lance is absolutely clean and looks forward to a strong last few days of the Tour de France.
Well, there's no doubt that some sections of the press, mainly French, simply cannot accept that Lance Armstrong is winning this Tour de France by such a great margin. But the thing is, but for the crash of Alex Zülle, the gaps would be a lot closer, I'm sure of that. Anyway, this is now the longest stage of the race at 236.5 kilometres or 148 miles as they go away from Saint-Flour to Albi, and we can expect again a very hot day.
This is one of the stages that Armstrong was pretty worried about, Phil, because there are 7 climbs on the day and hardly any flat at all. And the breakaway got to get away again early on. And at first sprint point at L'Aiguillole, they had 8 minutes and 30 seconds over the group. But for Lance, it was a bad day because he lost another teammate. Peter Meinhardt-Nielsen was forced to abandon with an injured knee.
And that's sad because the 2 previous years the US Postal Service have ridden the Tour, they've never lost a man. Now this year they've lost 2 men with injury, both with injury really, thinning them down to 7 riders. Abraham Olano here, back in the main field and still working out where on earth he can go in this year's Tour now. Onto the Côte de la Moisette, and the breakaway still well clear here, 96 kilometres covered and 13 minutes 15 seconds the advantage as Mariano Piccoli leads them over the top of the climb.
A good move by Mariano Piccoli to get himself into this group because he can pick up points along the whole of the stage, and that will drag him a lot closer to the lead of Richard Virenque. The main field not worried at all about any of the riders in that group, 18 minutes 31 seconds behind.
Well, the Kelme team has started to ride now because they're endangering their team position overall with Spanish riders in the breakaway, but it won't affect these 2 riders here now at 1 kilometre to go because we've got Salvatore Camesso and Serpellini is the rider who's gone. Little Camesso in his first Tour de France, he won just before the start the Italian Championship. He hasn't won many races. The only other victory he's got is a stage of the Tour of the Cape in South Africa, and that is more or less an open race. Now Now he's coming up towards the back wheel of Serpellini. If he can get into the slipstream, Paul, he might just about win it.
Well, he's just done it. He scrambled to get back onto the wheel of Marco Serpellini, a former junior world champion. He's a very good rider indeed, but he doesn't have the great sprint. But Serpellini has attacked 2 or 3 times to try and put Comesso into difficulty, but now Comesso has him just where he wants him, and he's going to force his compatriot here to lead out the sprint.
Well, there were originally a breakaway of 15 riders here. These two made a go for it. It's worked now because I don't think the rest are going to come back here. Serpellini, he put himself on the front, and there's no way the other Italian is going to come round until he sees that finish line barrier. He's going to force Serpellini to lead out, and this is it now. He's going to have to give it his best shot right down the barriers. Look at the face, though, of the little man, Salvatore Comesso, former European road racing champion. He now goes clear, and Serpellini knows it's all over. So it's always nice to win when you're the champion of Italy, and he's done it this time. Bugno has done it in the Tour de France, and so too has Mario Cipollini.
A great win. Once he got in front of Marco Serpellini, there was never going to be any challenge at all. This man has been great over the first week of the Tour de France for Mario Cipollini, but now with Cipollini's withdrawal, he gets the chance to ride for himself, and he's done it to pretty good success this afternoon.
Well, this is the race for third place here now, the remnants of that big breakaway, and Piccoli is not only a good climber but a very good sprinter as well, which is unusual. He gets the third place ahead of Paolo Lanfranchi, and Roland Meyer was the rider across the line there in 5th. But the winner today, the champion of Italy, Salvatore Comesso, and in his first Tour de France as well. And again, Eric Zabel now back in the green jersey, cleaning up in the bunch sprint and nudging further ahead of arch rival Stuart O'Grady there. Abraham Milano still second overall in this race. No change at all in the overall classification, but it was a hard day of racing nonetheless. And it's also another day knocked off now as we go one day to the rest day of 199 kilometres from Castres down to Saint-Gaudens, where the riders have a day off right in the shadow of the Pyrenees. And then the big boys must come out and fight once again. The beauty of this little town of Castres, as this is the Tour village where the riders come along and talk to the people before the race gets underway. And then once out on the open highway today, well, they kept it together for a while, but soon a breakaway of 6 was trying to get clear of the field. And the towns in this area had really turned out the style for the passage of the riders in the Tour de France. The beauty of the Tour, under the escort of the US Postal Service's riders, who really have rallied around their team leader and the race leader, of course, Lance Armstrong. In the heat of the day, as the race goes down towards the far south of a beautiful country, nobody was in any hurry at all. The peloton dragging the heels a little bit, 14 minutes and 7 seconds back.
This leading group of riders feel once again taking advantage of the fact that the US Postal Service are not chasing down the breakaways. They're leaving it up to the Spanish teams, who are now fighting to try and gain control of the king of the teams competition. The Spanish teams are really at the top of that competition at the moment.
An interesting diversion for Lance Armstrong today, but if you want to know what it's like to be a prize winner in the Tour de France, well, ask Paul Sherwin.
This is the finish line of the Tour de France. You've just come across it in first place. What happens next? You've got to run the gauntlet through a melee of journalists, photographers, cameramen. But the green shirts, the security men of the Tour de France, they bring you in here. After 5 hours in the saddle, you've got to negotiate this really bad surface. But once you get into there, it's a quick wash down and a nice clean jersey. Immediately after that, you're brought into here. This is the holding area. This is reserved for champions, the green jersey, the yellow jersey, and the King of the Mountains, not to forget the winner of the stage. Once you hear the Tour de France anthem, you can walk out here nice and relaxed onto the top step of the podium. You can receive the accolades of the crowd. I don't know what that's like because I've never been there. I wonder who it's going to be today.
Well, never mind, Paul, you did come pretty close, I'll give you that. 20 kilometres to go now for the breakaway that's deciding this 14th stage, taking us down now towards the finish at Saint-Gaudens, a breakaway which started, in fact, at 71 kilometres today.
Unbelievable again, Bill. The speed has been so high. The first hour of racing, 46 kilometres an hour and 44 kilometres an hour in the second hour. That's why these guys have managed now to build up such a huge lead. And all the time on the front of the main field over the first 2 hours, it was the US Postal Service. But once this group started to get a big advantage, again, it was the Spanish teams who came to the front to start to organise the chase. under the last kilometre, though. It's 2 riders managed to get clear. Dmitry Konichev, now he's won stages in the Tour de France before. He's won the last stage in Paris, but he hasn't won a stage for a couple of years.
In fact, 8 years since he's won the stage. Vladimir Belly, by the way, was the best place to this breakaway. 31st overall, 26 minutes off the pace. But these two are going to fight out the finish now. Now, normally Konichev is a very fast finisher, but he's got Faraz in here from the Mapei team. And in fact, Konichev is not willing to take the lead out, even though he knows that Lely is coming up quickly. And in fact, the Italian has panicked. Farazin has gone first. He's gone far too early here, and that's why he's sat up. But you see Konichev, who knows this man very well because Konichev lives in Italy. He's had a lot of firsts for Russia as a professional. He was the first world medalist in Chambéry when he got silver. He was the first man to pull on the polka dot jersey as leader of the King of the Mountains in the Tour de France for Russia. Now he'd like to continue his winning ways with another stage victory here. Remember, it's 8 years since he won, and that was in Paris in 1991. And now he goes again. And this time I think it's for real now, because Dmitry Konichev of Russia is going to make it fairly easy. Farazin did his best. It all didn't work out for him. He gets second, and Lely gets a frustrated third. Now the race from the rest here as they come up to the wine. That is Weisserman, who comes in, followed by Jackie Giron and the rest of that breakaway group. But here's the man who gets the glory, Dmitry Konichev of Russia, who now lives in Italy, and a victory for Mercatoni Uno, which is the team, of course, of Marco Pantani. And so he gets to salute the crowd again, despite the age catching up with him. The sprint here now, some 13 minutes has gone by, and again a battle between O'Grady and Zabel, going the way of Eric Zabel. But Dmitry Konichev can now add Saint-Gaudens to his stage victories in the past at Pau, Aix-les-Bains and at Paris. But this man, Lance Armstrong, is still having to deny the fact he is not taking drugs in this Tour de France, and the press are saying he is.
And I can emphatically say I'm not on drugs. I thought a rider with my history and my health situation, and also with the results of my career, I would have thought that it shouldn't be such a surprise. Okay, I was surprised to have certain good days, but I'm not a new rider, and I'm sure that there's been some looking and prying and digging. I know there has been, but it's been a week and nothing's been found. You're not going to find anything. If it's L'Equipe, if it's Channel 4, if it's a Spanish paper, Dutch paper, Belgian paper, there's nothing to find. And I think once everybody gets done doing their due diligence, and once everybody realizes that they need to be professionals and they can't print a bunch of crap, then they'll realize that they're dealing with a clean guy. I mean, it's unfortunate that the yellow jersey of the Tour de France always has to defend drugs, or say something about drugs, but c'est la vie.
Well, I suppose his performance is like this one at Sestriere, which has brought the doubters out in force.
You know, the only thing I can, like I said a minute ago, is I can assert my innocence. Certainly I've never tested positive. I've never been caught with anything. France is a country that has been very strict against doping, both from a federation standpoint, from a race standpoint, from a police standpoint. I would remind the people that I live in France. I raced all year in France. I did my Tour de France preparation in France. I did training camps in France. I'm always in France. If I had something to hide, I think I would stay away from France.
A lot of people who watch our programs have heard of your illness and see you winning now and think it's nothing short of a miracle. Do you see it that way?
It is a miracle, because 15 or 20 years ago I wouldn't be alive, much less be riding a bike or starting the Tour de France or leading the Tour de France. So, yes, I think it's a miracle.
Given that there was all this stuff in the French papers, are you surprised in a room full, maybe half full of French journalists, that none of the people who have presumably written all the stuff about you have had the nerve to ask you about it face to face?
I would say some of the questions asked have pertained to that, and I've answered them. I've asserted, I don't need to do it again, I've said I'm innocent. I've sort of given some facts that I think support that.
if they're here, they can certainly ask the questions. So like I've said the whole time, we have nothing to hide.
Welcome to Tour Plus and our extended coverage this year of the Tour de France. We're now facing up to 2 tough days in the Pyrenees, and this is the finishing line of the first day. The little town of Pau-Englé. It's never played host to the Tour de France before. Well, yesterday Lance Armstrong called a press conference in Saint-Gaudens, and he went a long way to convincing the press he really is riding this tour without taking drugs. There was even a moment of humour. One of the journalists stood up and said, "But Lance, tomorrow all of the Spanish riders are going to attack." And Lance goes, "What?" He says, "Well, thanks for the tip. I'll try and counter the moves." But there was a black mark on the tour yesterday, the sudden departure of the Belgian rider Ludo Dirksens. Let's go now to Gary Imlach, who is in Saint-Gaudens, to give us an update on that.
Last Thursday, Ludo Dirksens was a great story. The 34-year-old former factory worker from Belgium, who'd only turned pro 4 years ago, won his national championship and then followed